The first thing you need to understand is this. People don't disappear on that trail because they get lost. They disappear because, sooner or later, they stop walking toward the exit. Officially, the trail has been closed for almost 18 years. The National Park Service blames unstable cliffs, rock slides, and environmental restoration. Those explanations satisfy tourists. They satisfied me too. Right up until the morning, I found fresh footprints crossing the barricade, even though nobody had been allowed on that trail for nearly 2 decades. My name is Aaron Mercer, and for almost 11 years I worked as a park ranger in Yosemite National Park. People imagine park rangers spend their days rescuing hikers, answering questions about bears, and pointing families toward waterfalls. Most days, that's exactly what we do. But every ranger who's been around long enough eventually learns something the public never hears. There are places inside national parks that aren't closed to protect visitors from nature. They're closed because nature isn't the most dangerous thing there anymore. Nobody tells you that during training. They wait until you've seen enough strange things that you stop asking whether they're possible. Then someone quietly hands you a thin manila folder. No park logo, no government seal, just one sentence written across the front. Restricted interior access, ranger eyes only. I received mine during my 4th year. The superintendent didn't smile when he placed it on my desk. He closed the office door before speaking. Everything inside stays inside. I laughed. What is it? Old poacher reports. He didn't laugh back. I wish. When I opened the folder, I expected classified wildlife information. Instead, I found photographs. Old photographs, yellowed around the edges. The first showed a wooden trailhead sign, paint peeling, trees surrounding it. Stamped across the bottom was a date. August 14th, 1979. The trail name had been painted over with thick black tar. Someone had deliberately tried to erase it. Underneath the photograph, a handwritten note read, "Closed permanently after Incident 4." I flipped to the next page. Another photograph. This one showed the same trail 2 years later. Fresh barricades, new warning signs, heavy chains stretched between wooden posts. Yet behind those chains, fresh footprints. Only one set, walking inward, none returning. I looked up. What happened? The superintendent leaned against the window. We stopped counting. What? The disappearances. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. There are official numbers. There are real numbers. The real ones never leave this office. He slid another sheet across the desk. It wasn't a report, just a list of names. 37 of them. Every name had one thing in common. Body never recovered. I frowned. Search efforts failed? He shook his head. No. We stopped searching. The words sat in the room like poison. You stopped. We learned. Learn what? He stared at me for several seconds. Everyone sent in after them disappeared too. That was the first time I heard the trail's unofficial nickname. The Hollow Trail. Nobody knew its original name anymore. Every map had been altered decades earlier. Even old tourist brochures had pages removed. It was as if someone had tried to erase the trail from history itself. But places don't disappear just because maps stop showing them. They simply wait. I forgot about the folder for almost 3 years. Life went on. Campground patrols. Lost children. Black bears breaking into coolers. Routine. Until one rainy Tuesday in late October. Tourist season had mostly ended. The valley felt unusually empty. Mist rolled between the pines, turning familiar trails into tunnels of gray. I was checking storm damage near an old maintenance road when dispatch called. Aaron, go inspect closure site 7. Barricade alarm triggered. I checked the GPS. Closure site 7. The Hollow Trail. I sighed. Probably another teenager. Dispatch didn't answer immediately. Then Megan's voice came back quieter than usual. Maybe, but take your camera. The drive took nearly 40 minutes. Most visitors never came this far into the park. The road narrowed until branches scraped both sides of my truck. Eventually, I reached the barricade. 2 heavy steel gates blocked the entrance. Large warning signs covered them. Area closed. Federal access prohibited. No entry under any circumstances. Everything looked intact. Chain still locked. Warning signs untouched. No vandalism. No broken fencing. The alarm shouldn't have triggered. Then I looked down. Mud. Fresh mud. Someone had walked through it only minutes earlier. One set of boot prints approached the barricade. The strange part? They didn't stop. The footprints continued. Straight through the locked gate. Not around it. Not under it. Through solid steel. I crouched beside them. The mud was still wet. I reached out, pressed my fingers into one footprint. Water immediately pooled inside. Fresh. Impossible. I photographed everything. Then I noticed something even stranger. There were only left footprints. Every single print belonged to a left boot. No right footprints anywhere. Left. Gap. Left. Gap. As though someone had walked the entire trail using only one foot. I stood there, trying to make sense of it when my radio crackled. Megan. Static. Then, Aaron. It wasn't Megan. It was my own voice. You should leave. I froze. The transmission continued. You're early. I wasn't. The radio died. My phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. No attached image. No caller ID. Just 5 words. Don't follow the second trail. I frowned. Second trail? There was only one trail here. I looked back toward the forest. Then my stomach dropped. There were now 2 openings between the trees. One was the official entrance. The other hadn't been there 30 seconds earlier. It looked older, darker. The trees around it leaned inward unnaturally, hiding whatever lay beyond. No sign marked it. No footprints led toward it. Yet somehow, I was absolutely certain it hadn't existed when I'd arrived. The radio suddenly screamed with static. Then Megan's real voice broke through. Aaron, if you're still at the gate. Her voice cracked with panic. Whatever you do, don't count the trails. I instinctively looked back. 1, 2, 3. There were now 3 paths disappearing into the forest. And I knew, with terrifying certainty, there had only ever been one. I blinked hard. There was only one trail again. The second and third openings had vanished as if they'd never existed. The forest looked normal. Almost. My pulse slowly settled. Maybe the fog had distorted my vision. Maybe I'd been staring too long. Then I looked down at my camera. The last photograph I'd taken showed all 3 trails. Perfectly. The timestamp was only 12 seconds old. I zoomed in. The center trail was the original one, fenced off by steel gates. The trail on the left disappeared behind thick cedar trees. The trail on the right looked wrong. Not damaged. Not abandoned. Old. The dirt was smooth, almost polished, as though thousands of people had walked it yesterday instead of decades ago. But there was something standing just inside the tree line. At first, I thought it was another ranger. Dark green uniform, campaign hat, standing perfectly still. Then I zoomed in farther. The figure had no face. Not a blurred face. Not a shadow. Nothing. Just smooth skin where eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. I nearly dropped the camera. When I looked up from the screen, the figure was gone. My radio buzzed again. Aaron. This time it was Megan. Real Megan. Talk to me. I'm here. You've been silent for 6 minutes. What? I looked at my watch. Only a few seconds had passed. Megan, I've been talking the whole time. No. We've been calling you for 6 minutes. Cold spread through my chest. I checked the camera again. The newest photo timestamp wasn't 12 seconds old anymore. It was 6 minutes old. 6 minutes had vanished. Aaron. Megan sounded nervous. Turn around. I slowly turned. Someone had written on the steel gate. The paint was still dripping. Bright white letters. They hadn't been there earlier. Don't let them know you see them. I hadn't heard anyone approach. The paint was still wet. Whoever wrote it had done so without making a sound. I took another photograph. The words looked normal through the lens. Then the camera automatically snapped a second picture. I hadn't pressed anything. The second image showed the same gate, without the writing. Instead, someone stood behind it. A little boy, maybe 9 years old, hands in his pockets, looking directly at me. The timestamp on that image was dated October 28th, 2009, 17 years before I became a ranger. The radio crackled. Dispatch. Aaron, there's no missing child report. I didn't say there was. You were about to. I hadn't spoken. Not a single word. Yet dispatch answered thoughts I hadn't voiced. I climbed back into my truck. Every instinct screamed at me to leave. I started the engine, shifted into reverse. The truck wouldn't move. The tires spun, mud sprayed everywhere, but it felt like someone was holding the vehicle in place. Then I looked in the side mirror. A hand rested against the rear bumper. Just one hand. Pale, thin, human. Nobody stood behind it. Only the hand, holding 2 tons of truck completely still. I slammed the accelerator. The hand slowly let go. The truck lurched backward so violently I nearly hit a tree. When I looked again, the hand was gone. I drove almost half a mile before stopping. My breathing wouldn't slow down. I needed proof. Something rational. I pulled out the restricted folder from behind my seat. I'd kept it all these years, even though I wasn't supposed to. Inside was one page I'd never noticed before. It had been folded into the back cover. The heading read, Behavioral Guidelines, Hollow Trail. Not rules, guidelines. There were 7. The first 4 had already been crossed out in thick black marker. Only 3 remained readable. 5. Never acknowledge anyone who knows your name before introducing themselves. 6. If additional trails appear, leave immediately. They multiply after being noticed. My heart sank. Multiply. I looked through the windshield. There were now 4 dirt paths crossing the road ahead. They hadn't been there when I stopped. Then I read the final guideline. Unlike the others, it wasn't typed. It had been handwritten in shaky pen. 7. If you hear someone walking behind you, the sentence stopped there. No ending. Just unfinished handwriting. Like whoever wrote, it had been interrupted. Something crunched behind my truck. One footstep, then another. Very slow. Leaves shifting. Branches bending. Someone was walking through the woods toward me. I locked every door. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, 3 knocks. On the driver's side window. I turned. Nobody. 3 more knocks. Passenger side. Nothing there. Then, 3 knocks. From inside the truck. Directly behind my seat. I spun around. The back seat was empty. Except for fresh mud. 1 perfect left boot print. Nothing else. No right footprint. Just one. Exactly like the ones at the barricade. My phone rang. Caller ID. Park dispatch. I answered immediately. Megan. Static. Then a calm male voice. Ranger Mercer? Yes. You left too early. I don't know who this is. You will. Click. The line went dead. A second later, dispatch called again. This time it really was Megan. Aaron, where are you? Maintenance, Road 9. No. Her voice became shaky. Our GPS says you're still standing at the gate. I looked through the windshield. My truck sat beside the barricade. The steel gates were directly in front of me. I slowly looked into the rearview mirror. The road I'd just driven was gone. I had never left. And standing just beyond the gate were 7 park rangers, all wearing uniforms from different decades, all staring directly at me. None of them had faces. None of them moved. They simply stood shoulder to shoulder behind the barricade, uniforms spanning decades of National Park Service history. One wore the olive green wool uniform from the 1960s. Another had the tan shirt and gray trousers introduced in the late 80s. One looked almost modern. Different eras, different badges, different equipment. The only thing they all shared was the absence of a face. Smooth skin stretched where eyes, noses, and mouths should have been. Yet I could feel them watching me. The radio hissed. Megan's voice came through in a whisper. Aaron, don't count them. Too late. I already had. 7. The instant that thought crossed my mind, one more ranger stepped out from the trees. 8. Then another. 9. I looked away immediately. My pulse hammered in my ears. The guideline echoed inside my head. If additional trails appear, leave immediately. They multiply after being noticed. Maybe the same was true of them. Maybe noticing was the mistake. I shoved the truck into reverse. The engine roared. This time the tires caught. The truck shot backward down the muddy road. I didn't stop until the barricade disappeared behind the trees. Only then did I risk looking in the mirror. The road behind me was empty. No gates. No rangers. Nothing. I drove straight to Ranger Station 3. The first thing I did was dump the camera's memory card onto my computer. Every photograph from the hollow trail was still there. The gates, the warning, the faceless ranger, the impossible extra trails. Then, one by one, the files began changing. Not deleting. Changing. The warning on the gate disappeared first. Then the second trail. Then the faceless figure. By the time I reached the final image, it showed nothing unusual at all. Just a locked gate in the rain. Except, there was one detail I didn't remember photographing. Someone stood beside my truck, behind the driver's door, looking directly at the camera. It was me. I was standing outside the truck, but I had taken a picture from inside it. I printed the image and walked straight to Superintendent Ellis. He looked at it for less than 2 seconds before opening his desk drawer. Without a word, he pulled out an identical photograph. Same angle, same rain, same truck, same impossible second errand. Only the date was different. Mine was stamped with today's date. His was dated October 31st, 1998. I stared at him. Ow! He sighed, because this isn't the first time the trail has chosen someone. He slid a thick binder across the desk. Inside were dozens of nearly identical photographs. Different ranger, different decade, same location. Every single one showed the ranger twice. One inside the vehicle, one outside, watching. I don't understand. You will. He sounded exhausted. The trail doesn't copy people. It replaces them. A chill ran through me. What happens to the original? He didn't answer. Instead, he turned to a page near the back. Personnel records. Every ranger assigned to Closure Site 7 for the past 50 years. Almost all of them had eventually transferred, retired, resigned, or disappeared. Then I found my own name. Already listed. Assignment status. Completed. Date. Tomorrow. That's impossible. I haven't even finished the investigation. Ellis looked genuinely sad. The trail disagrees. Before I could ask another question, every light in the office flickered. The emergency generator kicked on. Outside, sirens echoed through the valley. Dispatch announced a missing hiker. Location, Closure Site 7. My stomach dropped. That trail is closed. Ellis nodded. It is. Well, how could someone get in? He looked at me for a long moment, then quietly said, They didn't. They walked in 23 years ago. The room went silent. The emergency beacon only activated today. Dispatch transmitted the missing hiker's description. Male, 34, blue backpack, gray rain jacket. I froze. That was exactly what I was wearing. Megan came over the radio again. Aaron, we got another problem. What now? Her breathing was uneven. Security cameras. What about them? They show you. I know. No, she interrupted. They show you. Walking back through the gate, I felt every muscle in my body lock. I've been here. I never came back. I know. Her voice was barely audible now. That's why I'm calling. She hesitated, then whispered the last thing I wanted to hear. The version on the cameras doesn't have a face. I drove back before anyone could stop me. Ellis tried. Megan begged me over the radio. 2 deputies even blocked the park exit. I went around them, because if something wearing my uniform was walking deeper into that forest, then whatever happened next would be blamed on me. The drive back to the hollow trail took less than 30 minutes. Or at least the clock on my dashboard insisted it did. When I reached the barricade, the sun was gone. It had been mid-afternoon when I left the station. Now it was almost dark. My watch read 7:43 p.m. The truck's clock still insisted it was 2:11 p.m. Time had split again. The steel gate stood open. Not broken, not forced, simply open, as if someone had been expecting me. The warning signs were gone. The chains lay neatly coiled on the ground, waiting. Beyond the entrance, there was only one trail. No second path, no third, just one narrow trail disappearing into the trees. For the first time all day, everything looked completely normal. That frightened me more than anything I'd seen before. I walked. Every instinct told me to turn around, but another feeling, a strange certainty, kept pulling me deeper. About half a mile in, I found the first ranger station. It shouldn't have been there. A tiny wooden cabin, rotting porch, faded National Park Service emblem. The date carved into the doorway read, 1958. Inside, everything was covered in dust. Coffee cups, maps, radio equipment, as though the staff had simply stood up one afternoon and never come back. On the wall hung dozens of ranger photographs. Every face had been scratched away, except one. Mine. The picture had been taken yesterday. I knew because I was wearing the rain jacket I'd used during the storm. Underneath, someone had written, "Current witness." A cold voice spoke behind me. "You're late." I spun around. Standing in the doorway was the faceless ranger from the photographs. Same uniform, same height, same posture. But this time, it had my voice. "I've been waiting. What are you?" It tilted its head. "The same thing you become if you stay." I raised my flashlight. The beam passed over its body strangely, like the light couldn't decide whether it was hitting something solid. Behind it, I noticed dozens of people standing silently among the trees. Tourists, children, deputies, search teams, all motionless, all faceless. Every missing person, every victim, still here. "You killed them." It shook its head. "No." They stopped remembering. "I don't understand. You think this place traps bodies. It doesn't. It traps identities." One slow step closer. The forest survives because someone always remembers it. When memory fades, it chooses another witness. My stomach turned. The disappearances weren't disappearances. They became. It gestured toward the silent crowd. Part of the trail, the radio on my shoulder, suddenly came alive. "Megan. Real Megan. Aaron, if you hear me." Her voice broke through heavy static. "You still have one chance." The faceless ranger looked almost disappointed. It found another signal. The radio screamed again. Megan shouted, "Forget it." "What?" "Forget the trail. Forget every detail. That's the only way to leave." The faceless ranger lunged. I ran. Branches tore my jacket. The trail twisted unnaturally beneath my feet. Trees shifted. The path doubled back on itself. Every direction looked identical. Behind me, dozens of footsteps followed. Not running, walking, patient. They knew I couldn't escape. Then I remembered something. The unfinished guideline. If you hear someone walking behind you, it had never said to run. I stopped. The footsteps stopped too. Complete silence. Slowly, I closed my eyes. I let go of every detail. The cabin, the gate, the photographs, the faceless ranger, the names, the voices. I forced myself not to remember, not to picture the trail, not to picture the forest, not even my own fear. The silence grew deeper. Then, someone gently touched my shoulder. I opened my eyes. I was standing beside my truck. Morning sunlight filtered through ordinary pine trees. The steel barricade was locked exactly as before. No footprints, no cabin, no extra trails. My radio buzzed. "Aaron." Megan sounded confused. "You okay?" I looked around. "What happened?" "You inspected the closure. You've been sitting there for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Not an entire night. Not hours. 10 minutes. I drove back to the station. No one mentioned missing hikers. No strange security footage existed. Ellis acted like we'd never spoken about the binder. When I asked him about closure Site 7, he frowned. There isn't a Site 7. The restricted folder had vanished from my locker. The photographs no longer existed. Even Blackwood Trail, or Hollow Trail, or whatever it had been called, was gone from every map, as if it had never existed. That should have been the end. Maybe it was. Mostly, there is only one thing I can't explain. Every few weeks, while checking ordinary hiking trails, I find fresh boot prints. Only left footprints. Never right. Always leading into parts of the forest where no trail exists. I never follow them, because I don't remember why. I only know, the moment I start wondering where they lead, something inside me begins trying very hard to remember a trail that no longer exists. And deep down, I know the park didn't close that trail to keep people out. It closed it to keep the trail from finding someone new.